One of those prices that scares me a little bit. I'm not quite sure why. Just one of those weird biases, I
Well,
guess. But
he's expensive, and let's not forget Keenan Allen is still in that offense, and Austin Eckler is still in that offense. So, like,
mhm.
I told from a price perspective, absolutely. Like, I think you're only playing him in stacks.
We are back. It's the Joe Holka Show presented by FanDuel. It's our DFS first look for NFL Week 6. Stick around till the end because we will be building a FanDuel team live on stream. But before we get there, I want you guys to stop what you're doing right now. Go to FanDuel.com/Holka and join the Listener League. It's a $5 3-max contest. It's 100% rake-free. Quite honestly, the best contest in all of DFS. We say it every single week, so make sure you get in there before it fills. We do have my good buddy back from FantasyLabs, Ryan Hodge, is here. Hodge, the first thing that I want to take a peek at here is quarterback, of course. So the quarterback position, it's a little bit different now this week because we have a bunch of buys. So a lot fewer games on the main slate. But the good news is, I guess in some ways, is we still have some elite quarterbacks to choose from. We got Patrick Mahomes at 9K. He's 600 more than Kyler Murray. Then we have Lamar Jackson, Dak Prescott, Justin Herbert. There are some heavy hitters at the quarterback position so far, man. So I guess what are your initial instincts when you see that Patrick Mahomes is that more expensive than everyone else? Worth
Yeah,
it?
it's quite the opposite of what we experienced in week 5, right? Where we were
Yeah.
kind of figuring out what we wanted to do at quarterback, and now we go back to a plethora of options. And um, yeah, I don't know if Patrick Mahomes is going to be worth it. I think 9K is super expensive. I'd probably be a little bit more prone to playing a guy like Justin Herbert in what should be a good matchup. I'm assuming there's a decent over under there, and they'll probably come out with some 26, 27 point implied team total. And I would imagine this is an over under of like 54. Um, you know, Baltimore playing tonight, honestly, might dictate a little bit of that spread, but
Mhm.
we'll see. So yeah, I don't worth it. It depends on what we see in the rest of the slate. If there's some min price tight end that really looks good, or we're going to get Darrel Williams very cheap, and we're also going to get Monte Booker really cheap. I would assume, right? I don't know. So those are things. I literally this is genuinely my first look. So
That's the idea. The true first instincts is, I think, super valuable, especially this early in the week. So yeah, that Chiefs game, it does look like on the road they're still 6.5-point favorites at the open per FanDuel Sportsbook. So we'll have to keep an eye on that as the week goes on. I guess yeah, we'll see this Baltimore and Chargers game. I think that's going to be one that people gravitate towards, no doubt. And then we're looking at this Matt Stafford spot against this Giants team. We'll see what happens at quarterback for the
mhm.
Giants, but that could be a game that we could see some pace up. And then I guess we just saw it. Like, people don't want to play these Cleveland games, but Arizona at Cleveland, like that's one that stands out to me for sure. Especially, I guess we'll have to take a peek at where Nuke's price is at now, but 8,400, man. So quarterback's always one of these ones I think we can kind of go through a little bit quicker, just because like we have no ownership context whatsoever at this point of the week. But it's still nice to see at the top. Let's scroll down and see if anyone stands out for a little bit cheaper. We do have Baker all the way at 6,800 now against Arizona. He's just not looked very good, so that's interesting. Justin Fields 6,400 at home against Green Bay. Man, it's tough sledding down there, though. I'm not sure if there's like a true standout. We have Taylor Heineke if we want to play the other side of that KC game, but he's all the way up to 7,300 now, man. So it's kind of interesting, even past that top tier. Did any of these guys in the mid range kind of stand out to you?
I think Heineke is probably the only one in that at $7,300 where Kansas City is giving it up. I think they are
Hmm.
32nd in points allowed to opposing teams' quarterbacks, and I think they're like 30th in wide receivers. So I that's not even after the Josh Allen game that we just
Hmm.
saw with Emmanuel Sanders getting there, Dawson Knox getting there. So like I just Heineke and Heineke, I think, is rushed for 20 plus yards. I should check the game log, but I think it's 20 plus yards in every single one of his starts so far too. So a little bit of floor there with the rushing upside, and it's usually easy to play with Terry McLaurin, and you've
Hmm.
got Ricky Seals Jones Jr. now soaking up market share of targets for what will probably end up being a pretty cheap tight end. So it's an easy team to stack, and it's cheap, and that'll allow you to get to, is there, I guess there's no Tennessee this week, huh? So no big
Yep.
dog this week.
No big dog. This is the first main slate I think we've had with Adam, so that'll be just an interesting dynamic right there. So this
Yeah,
game I think is going to gain some steam, I think for sure. And Mahomes
agreed.
like third highest in completion percentage above expectation, but I guess a couple of these guys that people might be somewhat down on, like Justin Fields, still fourth in the league in average intended air yards, so he's pushing the ball down the field. Like we're going to get another kind of buy low spot for Chicago. But I mean, my best team Hodge was basically a lot of 1 p.m. chalk with the Justin Fields like super low owned stack coming late. And so I have some recency bias and I guess away from Fields. But what did you see from these Chicago guys? Is it time to jump off that or get back on it, you think?
No, I didn't see anything overly concerning. I did think that Khalil Herbert ended up getting a little bit more run than I projected him for personally going forward. So maybe that was just a mistake on thinking that Williams was going to see, 70% of the market share of touches there. I really thought he was going to step into a Monty role, but with Fields specifically, um, his rush attempts have been down.
Yeah,
So
that's true.
it's kind of brutal. But
Mhm.
the rest of the offense though, I don't know. I think you're fine.
Just so cheap, man. So we have Allen Robinson now at 5,900. We have Darnell Mooney at 5,600. So
Yep.
kind of interesting, easy way to kind of back into this Green Bay and Chicago game, but you never know. So let's move on to the running back position. Like you said, no big dog. We'll see what happens with Christian McCaffrey, Dalvin Cook all the way up here, and then we have Austin Eckler all the way up to 8,400. This might be the most expensive I've ever seen Austin Eckler. Probably warranted for sure. Zeke at 8,300, Nick Chubb back up to 8,100. We were finally starting to get a discount on Nick Chubb, and now he's all the way back at 8,100 again. So that's pretty rough. Anything at the top kind of stand out to you? I guess we don't know exactly with Christian McCaffrey. He's hopeful that he'll be able to return against the Vikings, but yeah, I guess we don't know yet.
Yeah, that'll be a need to monitor practice reports all week long
Hmm.
with CMC there. Which I thought on Friday or Thursday, I thought there was even a small hint or indication that his
Yeah.
status was he might be available this Sunday, which I think is very good. Or last Sunday, I
Hmm.
thought was very good. Looks very good for him headed into Week 6. But look, Austin Eckler against Baltimore, this guy is getting goal line work,
Yep.
and that is what he was not getting the last 2 years in San Diego, or in LA.
Hmm.
Gosh, I
I still
wonder
do
when
that all
I'll
the time.
actually do
I
that.
still do that all the time.
Um, and so for me, the opportunity that Austin Eckler is getting, I think warrants his price tag here, and especially on a site like FanDuel where touchdowns are important. If
Hmm.
Eckler wasn't getting that work, I think 8,400 would be overpriced on FanDuel specifically, but with the touchdown equity that he now carries, I mean, on a week where if you're playing Heineke, so you can get to Austin Eckler, something like that, I think makes sense right out of the gate.
Hmm.
Kareem Hunt's usage and Darrell Henderson's usage, and DeAndre Swift. Wow, sorry, I'm jumping down a full tier here because now
Yeah,
I'm
that's
seeing these
fine.
prices and like Henderson and Swift at 7K.
Hmm.
You know that DeAndre Swift is leading the league in high value touches.
Wow.
So touches inside the 5 and 10 yard line and opportunities coming there is just
Hmm.
insane. And I didn't know that. So I thought that was an
Yeah.
interesting stat. And again, Cincinnati, who's not very good at stopping opposing teams' running backs.
Yeah, I like that one a lot. We talked about Swift last week as like he was almost kind of seeing like that Kamara S type of usage because it's like split right down the middle almost. Like he only had 11 rush
Mhm.
attempts last week, but he still had 6 targets. And when he was getting that usage, it was in like the high equity portion of the field. So I like Swift quite a bit, especially against Cincinnati. That's still a pretty decent price tag for him. And yeah, I guess like circling back quickly to Austin Eckler, like we've been talking about like this for years, it feels like, but he's finally got the role that we've been looking for. This offense, I think we can say pretty significantly at this point that it's one of the best offenses in the league with one of the best like up and coming type of quarterbacks. So 5 targets again, 17 rush attempts, like another 3 touchdowns for Austin Eckler. Like I guess that's my only concern is the $8,400 price tag. Like it is probably a little bit touchdown driven. Like if we're just looking at this, the guy's got like 6 touchdowns already this year, so that's kind of scary that he might be a little bit overpriced. But if that's the new role for Austin Eckler, like maybe we just got to get used to that price, man. That's tough.
That's what I'm saying
Yeah.
is that price to me actually makes sense. And the Chargers are so good. Their coach Staley is making such phenomenal decisions. I mean, every decision that guy made seems to be plus EV so far. Headed into week 6, I just for $8,400, like on this slate, no big dog. I'm not playing Ezekiel Elliott against New England in a timeshare. Dalvin Cook's questionable. We don't know what we're doing with Christian McCaffrey. Kareem Hunt is eating into Nick Chubb's workload. AJ Dillon is getting pass down work in the 10-yard line. I mean, give me a break. Like, so Aaron Jones, like, if we all of a sudden get Alexander Madison, okay, now it's a different conversation. But like, there are no running backs. There's only one running back out of all of those that I would actually play, and it's Austin Eckler. Not until we get down into this lower tier of Darrell Henderson and DeAndre Swift.
I think that's probably going to be the tier that a lot of people gravitate towards for sure. Like Saquon, obviously, it looks like he's going to be out for a couple of weeks at this point. So, yeah, we'll see if we get, I guess, a little bit of a bump there from some sort of value. Like we still have Damien Williams. He's all the way down to 6,500 still. So I think that'll be one that we'll be talking about. Josh Jacobs, 6,800. But like I think that Joe Mixon still, I guess we just talked about this. If you're watching this video, definitely go check out the Trade Targets video with Sigmund Bloom next, because we talked a little bit more in depth about Joe Mixon. But we at least saw that like we worry about these guys coming off injury, but it looked like Mixon was going to be just fine. I think it's just like they're going to ease him back into his normal workload, and if he can kind of take back that work that P. Ryan had last week, like Joe Mixon's really underpriced at $7K this week also. But anything else that stands out to you at running back?
Well, yeah, Devontae Booker, right? Like, I mean, he got 15, 16 opportunities once Saquon left, and they're playing. Gosh, who do the Giants play this week? I just looked
Rams.
at it. They play that's a tough matchup. Yeah, so never mind.
5,900 though. I mean, the price though. Like, I mean, it might not matter.
Yeah, but I mean, with Williams and other good values here, I don't know if that's necessary, man. I mean, that's like, I don't know, dude. That just seems like you're punishing yourself. Joe Mixon against the league's worst rush defense at $7K just seems insane. His usage is way too good.
Yeah, I think Mixon's like the standout one kind of in that range. But before we move on to wide receiver, looking at the back end for this specific video last week, only 10% of you guys have actually hit that notification bell. So let's correct that. So you can definitely be one of the first ones to see these videos going forward. So let's move over to the wide receiver position here. And we already kind of talked about some of those Chicago guys that are extremely cheap. But at the high end, Tyreek Hill, Devontae Adams, Cooper Kupp, Mike Williams, Justin Jefferson. So like it's like literally the complete opposite of what we had last week, where we didn't have as many of these top end guys outside of Devontae Adams. But what are your thoughts, I guess, at the top end? Devontae Adams is only $300 more than Cooper Kupp. So Mike Williams all the way up at $8K now. So we've aggressively corrected some of these pricing inefficiencies early in the year, and now they're right there with Tyreek and Devontae.
Yeah, Cooper Kupp pass right out of the gate. I think I'm for $8,200. I think I'll pass there.
Yeah.
Jamar Chase got a massive price bump.
Wow, I mean, 7,800. Yep.
Yeah, dude, that is very, very large. Hopkins slipping a little bit. But yeah, I think the only high price guy here, I'm only playing Tyreek in stacks. I couldn't tell you the last time I had a Tyreek one-off. I don't know, like, anytime that you're one-offing any of these overly expensive guys who you're just, I don't know, I don't think it's the sharp or plus EV play to do just due to their price tag. I mean, somebody else, their quarterback usually has to get there too in order for all of that to pay off. So Tyreek only in stacks. Devontae Adams, like, dude, his usage is just out of control again for the fourth year in a row, and it's mind blowing.
It's like the one down week, you're like, all right, Rodgers is going to correct this next week, like just lock it up, right? So it's like it's not sneaky whatsoever. But I'm with you. Like, I'll say this about Jamar Chase, like his $7,800 price tag, a little bit scary, but he's second in the league right now in percent share of his team's air yards. So he's one of those guys that is getting the deep targets. We know that Burrow is going to continue to look at him, and it is Detroit. So it's probably a mixture of what he's been doing, but also the matchup and the price point there. So I still think that he's probably going to gain a little bit of steam. What do we do with Big Mike, man? Was it a busted coverage on that touchdown that he had last week? So sometimes I see that, and I don't know, it makes me nervous when guys are getting there on touchdowns. But Mike Williams is someone that, again, like Austin Eckler, we probably just need to get used to this price difference now, right?
Wait, if you're nervous about Mike Williams, you got to be nervous about Jamar then, because he's getting there on
True.
touchdowns. He's gotten there on 2 busted coverage plays.
True. The
So
difference, I guess, is just the deeper targets. But Mike Williams, like, I guess, I'll take the L. He's still top 10 in percent of air yards, so he's right there as well. You're right, for sure.
Yeah,
Both those guys.
look, with Mike Dub, I think is approaching a price point where you can't play him as a one-off anymore. You're playing him with Herbert, and you're definitely running that back with like a Sammy Watkins or something cheap like Hollywood Brown on the other side. I'm a Mike Williams truther. I wrote about him in the offseason. He's one of my highest exposed wide receivers. So I can't side with you on the Mike Williams takes. I think
I'm not out on him. It's just one of those prices that scares me a little bit. I'm not quite sure why. Just one of those weird biases, I guess.
Well,
but
he's expensive, and let's not forget Keenan Allen is still in that offense, and Austin Eckler is still in that offense. So like I told from a price perspective, absolutely. Like I think you're only playing him in stacks. It's really straightforward to me.
Yeah, I'm with you. And exactly kind of what you were saying about Tyreek. It's crazy because, like, I'm with you. I rarely one-off him, but also I think the skinnies are in play with Mahomes and Tyreek a little bit more. Like, you just look at their correlation, 0.6 Mahomes to Tyreek, but, like, there's a lot of negative correlation with players on Tyreek's team versus him. Like, he gets there in these like blow up spots on weeks where Travis Kelce fails, or these blow up spots where some of these other guys aren't taken with him. I like stacking up, if you're fading Tyreek, I like stacking up Kelce with some of those cheaper options, because like Tyreek kind of like indirectly with some of those big plays burns the guys around him from seeing a little bit more usage as well. So I think that's like a skinny or maybe like a bring back type of play for me. So I guess outside of that, at the top end, we mentioned that DeAndre Hopkins 7,700, DJ Moore 7,600, Terry McLaurin kind of in that range. Like I have a really hard time going anywhere near Adam Thielen when I can just get up to Terry McLaurin or DJ Moore. But the DJ Moore price at 7,600, another guy that just seems like might be a little bit underpriced. But they didn't even really aggressively move up CeeDee Lamb either. CeeDee Lamb at 7K. So some of those guys are just kind of interesting also.
Yeah, you know what I'm just now realizing too, as I'm starting to digest this slate. There is no Titans. There's no Steelers. Pittsburgh is on a bye too.
Yep.
The Bucks are also on a bye. Am I seeing that right? Or they're playing Sunday night or Monday night.
We have another London game as well. I haven't looked to see which game that is yet. But
they're
yeah,
not on the main slate though.
Yeah, exactly. No Trey Lance either. We got no 49ers.
And neither is Miami. Okay, and the reason that I'm saying those teams, those are the 1, 2, 3, 4 teams allowing the most points to opposing teams' wide receivers.
Interesting.
So it's just like we're losing a ton of great matchups in this spot, which takes me back to this Washington football team game. I just wonder, I think people are going to gravitate to that. They're going to see the matchups. Washington is being extremely friendly to quarterbacks, wide receivers, and running backs a little bit, but not nearly as much as quarterbacks and running backs. So like, I don't know, man. Maybe it is a Patrick Mahomes, Tyreek, Terry McLaurin week, or you go with the Heineke. Sorry, I'm just thinking more about like conceptualizing these wide receivers.
You're absolutely right.
As a whole.
No, you're right for sure. I think like the more we look into this, there is a lot of heavy hitters, but like I think that Kansas City game is going to gain some steam almost immediately for sure. So just kind of scrolling down to see if any of these prices really stand out to me. The other Cincinnati guys are significantly cheaper if you wanted to go to that. Kadarius Toney, we just saw like his 13 targets, like they're actually scheming him the ball now. He's only 6K, so it seems like still a reasonable place to go back to there. Jacoby Myers, will he ever score a touchdown? I don't know, but he's 5,800. These Arizona kind of ancillary type of players still extremely cheap. We talked about Darnell Mooney, extremely cheap. Man, I don't know. I guess if you wanted to get different in this Kansas City game, like the other weapons are still so cheap, right? 5,500 for McCole Hardman down there. Van Jefferson, 5,400. So like I still always find guys down here that I like 5,500 to 6,200 on FanDuel, like almost every week, right? Like there's a clear tier gap here.
How many? What's the player field size in the Holka contest?
2,000.
Okay.
So, yeah,
so
a little bit
more skinnies than onslaughts.
More skinnies for sure. Yeah, I think onslaughts are probably like the 500 and down type of field size for me usually. Yeah.
Agreed.
All right, so if there's not any other wide receivers that stand out, let's move over to the tight end position quickly. Travis Kelce's 8,500. Big tier gap, Darren Waller 7K, and then Dalton Schultz all the way up to 6,500 now. TJ Hawkinson just didn't look right in terms of like kind of battle through that injury. He's still 6,400. Mark Andrews 6,300. So like I guess when I see the prices that are this close together, it just makes me want to get to Darren Waller, just because like I would rather play Darren Waller than basically any of these 5 guys below him, and you don't have to get up in terms of salary as far. So that's my initial feel on it if we take the Kelsey stuff out of it. But what are your thoughts on, I guess, like a lot of these other guys outside of Kelsey and Waller? It looks like they're starting to price them up a little bit.
Yeah, I would need to look at an AFPA metric, or like an above average, an opponent above average points allowed. But I can tell you that Denver is allowing an average of like 4 points to tight ends right now.
Yeah.
But I don't know who they've played. I just can't think of it off the top of my head. So if they're playing a bunch of trash, then that's meaningless. So I would just want to check AFPA. But yeah, on your note of just, this massive tier gap, and then it's price, or I mean, this massive tier drop off, and then there's just price so similarly. Like you've got, 8 players all within $1,000 of one another who are kind of all just like, like whatever. It definitely does make you want to get up to a Kelsey or a Waller this week for sure. I think Ricky Seals-Jones against Kansas City at 5K is probably the first one that really starts out. And Baltimore has been pretty friendly to opposing teams' tight ends too, but like good luck with the lottery of Parham and Jared Cook, like it's just
Nightmare.
one of the, like, okay, yeah.
Nightmare. So like, yeah, I'm with you. Like the Ricky Seals-Jones at 5K against Kansas City in this kind of high flying games. Interesting. I mean, Travis Kelsey, like I get it. Like only like, I mean, he scored last week. It only gets you 57 yards. It's not really enough for that price point, but like 10 targets again, right? So like it's hard to really say anything bad about Kelsey ever. So that's where I'm at on that. Any of these other guys, like we don't really need to spend a ton of time on tight end, because I still think it's kind of like quarterback. Like I want to see where ownership shakes out on some of these guys before we get too deep into the weeds. So all right, before we get to the lineup builder, I want everyone to pause this video. Let me know in the comments who you think will be this week's highest owned player. Hodge, you ready to build a team?
Yes, sir.
Let's do it. So the Joe Holka Show Listener League, we mentioned it, 2,000 person field size. It's $5, rake free, 3 entry max. And I think it's one of the best contests that you can put your money into from a DFS perspective. FanDuel.com/Holka to get in there before it fills. Hodge, we're starting with this first look lineup.
Joe Mixon.
Love it. So we got Mixon. He's 7K against Detroit. Get him in there, right? So
I need to confirm this too, but I think P. Ryan's on the COVID list. So
yeah, so you actually mentioned that on the Trade Targets video, so you probably weren't going to check it. So yeah, he was all over that. So I think that if that usage comes back to Mixon, just way too cheap. So I'm with you on that. Do we want to try and make a team with Mahomes, see if we can get one to fit?
So that's I almost went Mahomes just to force us to start to think differently here. So yeah, I'm absolutely down if you want to do that.
Okay, so the next question, I suppose, is do we want to go elite double, or do we want to go with like a Tyreek, bring it back with RSJ, something like that?
No, let's do Tyreek and Terry. Let's spend up.
All right,
let's see if we can get there on a first look.
So let's just scroll down at defense so we get a better idea of where we're at. Are there any favorites down here? We got Washington, KC, we got Rams, Giants. We could go Chargers at Baltimore. We could go Cleveland. I don't know. It's kind of rough down here. We could go Minnesota at Carolina. The first home team, essentially, that stands out at least a little bit from a passing volume perspective. We would think Cincinnati is going to, continue to skew a little bit more heavy towards the pass. Like that's what we expected going to the year. Detroit's 3,700, so I wish they were a little bit cheaper. But is there any of these defenses, at least on the cheaper end, that stand out?
No, I think the only team that might be passing, like I don't really want to play Detroit with Joe Mixon in our lineup. Just right out of the gate,
for sure.
Just the correlation there. But I do like the first thing that stands out to me is Chicago against Green Bay. I hate picking on Rodgers, but there will
just throws the ball away.
Yeah, that's the thing. He's
so
just
annoying.
Always it's 8 yards, down the sideline. So
you could go Texans against Carson Wentz. That seems always like that'd be okay.
That's what I was looking at too.
3,400.
I'm plugging in Houston.
All right, so that's a good starting point. So we still have 6,100. So we have plenty of room here, to be honest. So that's not the worst situation to be in. We could just assume that we're going to get Saquon out, so we could just play Booker, and that gives us tons of room. So Saquon, at least right now, it looks like he's dealing with that sprained ankle. Like he's only expected to miss a couple of weeks. So to me, that sounds like he's for sure out in week 6 then. Yeah,
I don't like messing with the Rams, dude. I know he's cheap, but like I'd I would honestly rather
We could
play
just play Damien.
Williams.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes. Yeah, I think that's what I would rather do.
Okay. Do we
But I
want to
think he's
go?
still,
We
like,
probably don't do. We
65.
don't have enough salary to mini stack Damien with Devontae, unfortunately. But let's see
No.
what we can do with tight end here. So, like you said, not the best matchup for Darren Waller. So we're probably going to be living somewhere in this middle tier here. We already have. We could go Tunyon for a little bit cheaper. Give us a mini stack with Damien Williams. I don't know, man. RSJ, we could just add to that, but
Thoughts on this? What about playing Darrel Williams instead of Damien Williams for almost $1,300 cheaper?
we could. I don't hate it.
You think it's too thin for this contest?
It might be, but man, he's so cheap, right? And it just adds to our stack. Like, what was Darrell's target numbers? So he had 5 targets last week. So I mean, that's reasonable.
Yeah,
I just think
like
it's probably thin, but we needed salary to get up to some of these other guys for sure. Yeah.
Right. Your call.
Let's leave him in there for now, because that would get us to a much better wide receiver range for sure.
Yes.
So let's see if we toss in. I really don't want to play this like Jared Cook Parnham wheel as well, so it always freaks me out.
Yeah, Higbee's like the only one that really stands out there.
He was the one I was
from
looking
like
at,
a guy
5,500.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's throw in Higbee. We could play Kadarius Toney because he's still very cheap as well as a mini stack with Higbee. So that gives us like a ton of salary.
Absolutely in. And then, yeah, we got $7,800 left over in the flex. So
gets us to Jamar Chase, Alexander Madison, Nuke, DJ Moore. Like we got tons of firepower here.
So just right out of the gate, without even thinking of anything, I would plug in DJ Moore.
Yeah. That's like the one that like I just assumed he was going to be over 8K like the rest of the year. Ryan Hodge, everybody. Want to make sure that you guys remember that I give away free sports memorabilia every single week. So check out this video right here next to see what I pulled from the Week 6 Pristine Auction Mystery Box.